Gets open for three. Dagger!
Hello. Welcome to episode 40 of Well Beyond the Arc. I'm Manoli.
And I'm Montana.
And it's good to be back, everyone. We'll be talking NBA basketball with you as always for the next 60 minutes. A lot, and I mean a lot to get to today, coming off last night's Game 7 of the Eastern Conference Finals and some other news around the NBA. But as usual, a couple of housekeeping notes. If you haven't done so already, please hit that like button. Please hit that subscribe button to the Yankee and the Brit Sports Group. Lots of great content, lots of great podcasts out here. Also, we are now on Rumble, so be sure to check us out on Rumble as well. I'm being told that it's basically YouTube with a little green logo. That's how much I know about Rumble. But join us on there anyway. Montana, how the hell are you, buddy?
I'm doing pretty all right. I'm battling a little sinus infection right now, but other than that, I'm doing okay. Honestly, it got me out of playing bus driver today for an elementary school field trip, so I'm doing all right with it. I've made my peace with it, honestly, but doing all right. Morning, still saying, come on, man, let's review the tape. Let's roll it back. Let's give the Lakers 2 more minutes. But no, I'm mourning the loss of the season, but doing pretty good other than that. What about you, man? You've got a lot. I mean, you're wearing the Bulls. You had to mourn way sooner than I. You've been mourning for a couple of months now, man.
I'm still in denial because this squad is the squad that came the closest this year to eliminating the Miami Heat from the playoffs. And that's the truth. That is the truth. Not Boston, not Milwaukee. Who else they played? Not Philadelphia, the Bulls. Granted, it was fool's gold, but whatever. Before we get started, I got to tell you, I listened to last week's show, and Jay, thanks for filling in for me. Montana, you and Jay did a kick-ass job last week, so good stuff. We'll piggyback on some of those takes too, and like I said, we have a lot to get to today. First of all, we had Eastern Conference Game 7 last night. The Miami Heat came out, and they just looked more ready to play than the Celtics. There are a couple other factors as well, but the Heat defeated the Celtics by a score of 103-84 to win the Eastern Conference. Jimmy Butler won the Larry Bird Trophy as the Eastern Conference Finals Most Valuable Player. Boston looked all out of sorts even after the first minute when Jason Tatum tweaked an ankle on a freak play. But Miami just looked like they were in control from there on out for about the last 47 minutes of the game. Montana, what are your key takeaways of last night's game? Did the Heat win it or the Celtics choke it away?
I think the Celtics choked it away. However you look at it, however you cut the cake, the Celtics team should not, for where they finished in the season, where we thought they were going to be after the last series, looking at them in this series, I wasn't impressed. I'm not impressed that no team has really made a push. Other teams have become close, but they came really close to making that, impossible comeback. But they did not show up in Game 7. And they did not play like a team that should have been in the Eastern Conference Finals. They played like a team that should have been bounced in the first round. So honestly, the Celtics, as great of a team as they are, we need to look at them as a whole and see they've got a lot of inconsistencies, and those inconsistencies throughout the seasons, throughout the playoffs. That is why this squad, specifically Tatum and Brown, have not won a title yet. The talent is there, but there's so much inconsistency surrounding that team and that organization. Last episode, me and Jay talked about, do you look at not blowing the team up, but making big changes? I think you do. I totally think you do. I don't think there's any other way you can move forward going in the right direction if you don't make some serious changes to that team. So honestly, Boston did not play like a team that belonged in the Eastern Conference Finals. And the Miami Heat, well, it's great that they pulled it off. The fact that they almost blew that, and the fact that they got pushed all the way to a Game 7, I'd be a little worried going up against a team like the Nuggets that just swept the Lakers, a team that caught serious fire. I would be worried because the Nuggets took care of business swiftly. Miami, though, not so much. So as much of it's a big victory for the Heat. They're back in the finals. It's cool to see a second time in the Jimmy Butler era. But for me, the Celtics beat themselves, and that's what they've done throughout these entire playoffs, even in the finals last season. So I've got to say, blow it up. Boston, time to blow it up a little bit. Let's move these pieces around. Let's get it done, because this is not the team that's going to get this done.
I agree with Boston more choking than Miami winning it, but we got to give some credit to the Miami Heat, right? They are a hell of a franchise. If they are the 8th seed, underachieved all season long, have a number of undrafted free agents. I mean, we've talked about this at length before, right? On paper, the Celtics should have swept them. In fact, on paper, the Heat shouldn't have even got past the first round against the Bucks. But the reason they got past the Bucks is they got a bunch of guys that grind it out. They fight tooth and nail. It's not always the talented team that wins; it's the team that executes the best. And the Miami Heat have been outside of the Denver Nuggets, the best team in the NBA at executing. They've also been the best team of the playoffs at defending. Boston, after Jason Tatum tweaked his ankle, which did have an effect on the game. I don't care what anybody says because Tatum was
You're right.
a decoy, excuse me, and was a no-show for the rest of the game. Although I do give him credit for trying to gut it out on the bum ankle. After that, after Tatum turned his ankle, it was all as if the Celtics said, "Oh shit, what do we do?" Right? They did not make an adjustment. Jaylen Brown for the first couple minutes after the ankle twisting by Jason Tatum, had a couple of good plays, but then tried to do too much one-on-one stuff, and they never recovered. After that, there was no ball movement. Tatum is the one guy that can get to the basket. He can be a cutter, a slasher, and hit from three. There's no way Tatum's cutting. There was no ball movement. There was no drive and kick out until the Celtics were down 20. It completely affected the Celtics and the way they play their game. In Miami, at first, they got off to a slow start themselves, but the way they defended the rest of those guys, most teams say, okay, we're going to come in and take away your best player. Well, they didn't have to take away Jason Tatum. They literally took away everybody else knowing that Tatum couldn't move. And that's the adjustment Spoelstra and the Heat made. Not only that, but the Celtics shot 9 of 42 from three-point range, a game after they shot 7 of 35 and managed to win, but 9 of 42 from three-point range. All of that and terrible turnovers. Jaylen Brown trying to do too much one-on-one. Just a lot of mental mistakes. And Miami, you can't do that against a team like Miami that executes flawlessly, that defends well, defends really well off the switch. And the difference was Miami was hitting their threes. They were getting wide open threes, hitting in rhythm. I mean, Jimmy Butler was catching and shooting from downtown. When's the last time you saw that? So, yes, the Boston Celtics did choke it away, but we got to give some credit to the Miami Heat for flawlessly executing because they had to execute perfectly in order to win, and they did that and then some.
Yeah, I mean, and honestly, winning in Boston, Game 7, that's a huge – 76ers couldn't do it. I mean, that winning a Game 7 in Boston, we don't take into account how big atmosphere and home, team advantage, how big that is. And that's what the bubble was lacking. And even I believe the next season after, I don't think it was full capacity. Was it during the playoffs? I know that I don't know.
Depends on where the games were. I'd say about 70% capacity.
That's right. So it was a little bit better, but it was not the same. This is the most atmosphere we've had since before COVID, and that's been a huge part of this. And Boston having 2 Game 7s, like honestly, the other one they didn't have to claw their way back as much. It wasn't the same type of series, but another reason that I was like, okay, maybe they can pull this off is because of just the fact that it was in Boston. You're back in Boston for another Game 7. So there were just other factors, and the Celtics just couldn't get it done. Shout out to the Heat, of course. They did pick up on all the Celtics' flaws, and they really executed. Erik Spoelstra is one of the best and longest tenured coaches in the league right now, and there's a reason for that. He knows how to make these teams great, doing it with so many different squads. I think he's one of the most consistent coaches we have seen in the last 20 years. He is absolutely one of those guys that gets it done and has. So shout out to him, because all these other coaches, these bigger name coaches that have championships, even some of them have been getting swapped or lost their jobs. So shout out to him, because he knows how to execute. And that's what we really saw in Game 7 was the execution that this Miami Heat has. Makes them one of the best teams overall, because they just know how to move the ball. They know how to execute on their opponent's flaws. They know how to do all of that and then some. And you've got to give a huge shout out to the coach for that, because it's nothing new for him and this organization.
And it's creating a culture, right? I mean, it's what Pat Riley started in the front office. Well, he started as a coach and a GM, then moved up totally to the front office, brought in Erik Spoelstra, who's all about that as well. And put some respect on Erik Spoelstra's name. this is a guy that LeBron wanted fired in his first year at the Miami Heat, and Pat Riley said, "Hell no, I'm not going to fire him. You got to do better. Don't ever come upstairs and ask me to fire a coach ever again." And next thing you know, LeBron's on to Cleveland after his contract's done. But anyway, Spoelstra, second longest tenured coach, and with his current team in the NBA, second only to Greg Popovich. So I mean, it's Pop and Spo. I mean, those are the top two coaches. I don't care how bad the Spurs have been the last couple of years. They haven't had talent. I'd say Pop and Spo are the two best coaches in the league. Then you put Steve Kerr right after that. But got to give it to the Heat, man. And also, Caleb Martin had himself not only a game 7, but he had himself a series. And that guy, Reggie Miller, if you're watching the telecast, every time Caleb Martin hit a big shot, Reggie Miller was saying cha-ching, because that guy is definitely gonna get paid. And Ryan, we've heard it before. I don't know if the Heat have peaked. Maybe you're 100% right, but we thought that the Heat were going to get past the Bucks. We didn't think they were going to get past the Knicks. We didn't think they're going to get past the Celtics, and here they are. I mean, what the Heat do very well and better than any other team is disrupt. I'll try English again. What everybody else does. Ask the Boston Celtics all about that, but we'll see what happens. Well, before we get on, and we will get to an NBA Finals preview later on in the show. There's a question earlier, I believe it was Ghost that was asking who's going to guard Joker. We'll get into all of that, but we got to get through some of the news of the day and also some news from over the weekend. And, a series that I want to call, a segment I want to call Bad Takes by Former All-Stars. And kids, this is why you need to stay in school and not get dropped on your head as a kid, because if you do, you start making these terrible takes. And we'll start with former Laker Dwight Howard. Montana, you brought this to my attention the other day. Dwight Howard went on record in saying that he was better in his prime than Nikola Jokic, who I would say is in his prime right now, is today. Dwight Howard honestly believes he is better than what Nikola Jokic is today. Just gonna let that marinate for a second. Montana, what are your thoughts on that? Because I got plenty.
What I'll say first and foremost is they're not even the same type of player. What you have to look at right off the bat is these are two completely different centers. And the way Joker plays, I don't think we've really seen a center move the ball like that. That's one of the things that puts him so high up on so many people's lists, all time or current, is because of the way he moves the ball. It's definitely not because he can jump that high, but the way he moves the ball around is just, I don't think we've seen another big man really do that like that. Dwight Howard didn't move the ball around. He just dominated in the paint, both offensively and defensively. If you match these two players up, skill set wise, Joker's a better player top to bottom. But if you do a one-on-one of Dwight Howard in his prime versus Joker, I will say, because Dwight Howard was such a dominant player, I'm not going to say he'd be better, but it'd be a good matchup. It'd be an exciting, pretty aggressive matchup because of how good Dwight Howard was on both sides of the ball in his prime, would match up well against a player like Joker. But top to bottom, Joker is a much better center. And when it's all said and done, yes, Dwight Howard has his championship, but Joker's going to win, in my personal opinion, 1 to 3 in his prime. It's not going to be Dwight Howard. Dwight Howard was not in his prime when he won the championship with the Lakers. Shout out to him, because he did, back to a Joker Dwight moment though, he did help shut Joker down in the bubble. I will say that Dwight Howard did provide a lot of help shutting that explosiveness and shutting Joker down in the bubble. But that doesn't mean he's a better player. When it's all said and done, Joker's going to be an all-time great. He's going to have 1 to 3 rings, a couple of MVPs. It's easy. I mean, just look at it. It's easy. When you take that into account, and then the fact that he can average a triple-double essentially, top to bottom a better player. But one-on-one, it's kind of a different scenario, and the more dominant player and the more physical player in Dwight Howard might keep up in that scenario.
Kids, if you're watching and listening, don't eat paint chips. Don't eat Tide Pods. Nikola Jokic is by far a better player in his prime than Dwight Howard was in his prime. Dwight Howard was the most dominant center of his era during the time that he played. Two different players. I agree with you 100%, Montana. If they were to play one-on-one, Jokic would have some problems with Howard defensively, right? And he, there's some things like Howard would make life difficult for Jokic if they're playing one-on-one. But let's just doing a player comparison. What's Howard better at Jokic? Okay, Howard was a better defender. He's a multi-time defensive player of the year. Great. He's better in the paint, more dominant, more physical, better at growing muscles. Great. He was a more powerful player than Jokic. Great. Everything else, Nikola Jokic is much better than Dwight Howard, hands down. I think he's a better leader. He's a better teammate. He's a better passer, shooter. All right, Dwight Howard might be the better rebounder. I should give Dwight that too. Them in a one-on-one matchup would be interesting. Yes, Dwight Howard did help slow down Jokic in the 2020 Western Conference Finals in the bubble, 100%. But he also did that in a reserve role, and it's easier to do that, 20 minutes a game than it is 40 minutes a game. So I don't know if this is Dwight trying to pull a Scottie Pippen, who we'll get to in just a second, and try to maintain relevance. This is Dwight Howard trying to say, hey, get me back in the league. I can slow this guy down. But terrible take by Dwight Howard, in my opinion.
He's just been trolling people too lately. We also have to remember on social media, he's been telling LeBron to come play on his team and recruiting James Harden. Like at the end of the day, it could also be, I think that Dwight Howard's a pretty big troll. I'm not saying that he's trolling in this scenario, but we also have to remember he's said a lot of things, especially recently, and it's just kind of been on his social media accounts.
Take it with a grain of salt. But kids, like I said, don't eat them Tide Pods. Speaking of eating Tide Pods, Scottie Pippen's back in the news. He went on Stacey King, his former Bulls teammate, podcast, Give Me the Hot Sauce, which I highly recommend. Pretty entertaining podcast. Had a great conversation with Stacey King. Made a couple of great points, but the one takeaway, and I will say this before the one takeaway that everyone seems to be making, he did give credit to Michael Jordan as being one of the greatest players of all time. He had him on his Mount Rushmore. He says that the Bulls wouldn't have won without him, and he wouldn't have been the player without Michael Jordan. But then he went on to say that before Scottie Pippen arrived in Chicago, Michael Jordan was a, quote, and he said this, a horrible player. Grant, Michael didn't win any championships before Scottie Pippen got to the Bulls. Scottie Pippen averaged 8 points a game in his rookie season in 1987-88. I don't know many horrible players that average 37 points a game. I don't know how many horrible players that win Rookie of the Year, Defensive Player of the Year, MVP of the league. If that's horrible, I want to be a horrible NBA player. Montana, what do you make of Scottie Pippen's comments and him tripling down on his bashing of Scottie Pippen, or Michael Jordan, excuse me?
He's always been doing this, whether it's interviews or even subtle shots in The Last Dance. He's been doing things like this forever. And part of it is, I have to admit, honestly, from his point of view, some of it has to have been living in that shadow, because no one was really, as much as he was a great player for the Bulls, the first thing you thought of when you thought of the Bulls or even just the NBA was Michael Jordan. It wasn't Scottie Pippen. And that was the entire time that Scottie Pippen was relevant. Now, he did leave and have a little bit of success, I believe, with Portland. They made the Western Conference Finals in '99. But again, they didn't make it past that. He never had major success. Now, arguably, Jordan never had much more success than that without him either. But what I will say is this. You could plug a lot of other players next to Michael Jordan, and they would still win 6 championships. You take Michael Jordan out of the equation and you have Scottie Pippen and you match him up with a lot of those same players, they're not winning. They might win 1 or 2. They're not winning 6. Michael Jordan was the key factor. And there's video footage and there's reports of him not being being an intense teammate, but a lot of people have given him credit for that intensity, pushing them to the next level. The only reason they won their 6th championship was because of that drive Michael Jordan had and Phil Jackson. It was because of those two guys. It's the only reason that crew won that. So it's ridiculous. And Scottie Pippen has a lot of reasons to not like Michael Jordan and have things to say. And some of them have nothing to do with basketball. There's a lot of drama between the Scottie Pippen and Michael Jordan crew. And there always has been, and there always will be. So I don't think it's anything new. I don't think we'll see them sit down and do the whole Magic Johnson, Isaiah Thompson interview where they hug each other and cry. I don't think we're ever going to see anything like that. I think this is how it's going to always be. So
You'll see that if Michael Jordan sues him, because Pippen won't be able to afford the lawsuit. Now, look, I grew up in the 90s. I grew up with the Michael Jordan, Scottie Pippen Bulls. Um, Believe it or not, Scottie Pippen was my favorite player, and Jordan was my second favorite player, just because Scottie Pippen had an all-around game. Um, Jordan retired. Pippen didn't go anywhere, even though the Bulls tried to trade him for Sean Kemp once. Tried to trade him for Tracy McGrady later on, but it is what it is. Ken Kell, you're right. I mean, Michael Jordan didn't win these championships without Scottie Pippen. You're 100% right, and Michael Jordan's admitted as much. How many championships did Scottie Pippen win without Michael Jordan? It goes both ways, right? The difference is, and I'm going to disagree with you on one thing, Montana. This feud has not always been going. This started after The Last Dance because they seem to be close. I mean, when Pippen was elected to the Hall of Fame, he had Michael Jordan present him. That's like the highest honor you can have. You see them hanging out in retirement. You see them joking around, sitting courtside, taking in games and things of that nature. You see Pippen going into Jordan's box to surprise him at Charlotte Hornets games. There's plenty of viral clips. Yeah, my Jordan without Pippen in the playoffs, completely trash. Completely agree. I'm not denying any of that. What I'm getting at is there was never this feud until The Last Dance. And I blogged about this a little while ago, anybody who expected, including Scottie Pippen, who expected The Last Dance not to predominantly feature Michael Jordan, when Michael Jordan had last rights to the cut of that documentary, he basically said what, had the okay of what went in and what didn't go in, is just naive. And Pippen made some good points saying, listen, the rest of the team should have been more features in The Last Dance. Luke Longley wasn't featured as much. Ron Harper wasn't featured as much. Tony Kukoc probably should have been featured more. And yeah, it showed it from Michael Jordan's point of view. Even Phil Jackson said that on interviews. But to go and call him a horrible player, playoff record without Pippen, great. That's fine. But both of those guys made each other better. And past The Last Dance, and then Scottie Pippen being upset about that and writing his book, and he's been doubling and tripling down since to make a buck or two. Not only that, but I acknowledge some of the comments about Scottie Pippen's ex being with Michael Jordan's kid and Michael Jordan being okay with it and signing off on that. Now, if they're that close to boys, Jordan would be like, okay, this isn't right. But that's a different story for a different time. That is a big reason why Pippen's mad at Jordan and continues to put him down. But this whole thing that they've always had animosity, I mean, Pippen might have always been jealous of Jordan's shadow. But once Jordan retired, he got a taste of that. And he couldn't do it by himself. And when Jordan came back to the Bulls, Pippen's like, all right, cool. We got the black cat back. He's going to shoulder the load, and I'll be the number 2. And they won 3 more championships. But it's pretty sad to see where this has gone. Jordan hasn't said anything to put Pippen down since The Last Dance. And even during The Last Dance, he even came out and said, you can't say Michael Jordan without saying Scottie Pippen. He gave Pippen credit. It's been Pippen that's kind of been putting him down ever since. So for me as a Bulls fan that grew up during that era, sad to see. Pippen makes some good points, but I just wish Pip would just go to selling his bourbon and his cannabis and move on. Smoke, you're right about that. I mean, Jordan wasn't the best teammate. You're absolutely right. And now when you put a camera in front of those guys, the Judd Bushlers, the Steve Kerrs in The Last Dance, things of that nature, they admitted it, the Bill Wenningtons. But at the same time, what did those guys do after they left the Bulls? Those guys had the best years of their careers with the Bulls too. Not denying Jordan wasn't a bad teammate, and Pippen was the one they went to. They always said Pippen was the better teammate. Not denying that one bit, but there's something to it. Anyway, I'll come up for air and let you comment on this next piece, Montana. And, for bringing smoke, he might be putting in his resume with the Golden State Warriors here, because earlier today it came out that the Golden State Warriors are going to be needing a new GM. Be careful what you say about Steve Kerr. I'm not going against Steve Kerr, smoke. Relax. Bob Myers, a longtime GM of the Golden State Warriors, has been there for about 12 years, the architect of the Golden State dynasty, announced today that he is stepping down. He will not be returning as GM of the Golden State Warriors. This could have a lot of effect to this, Montana. But when you got this news, what was the first thing that went through your mind?
Though, I mean, the first thing that went through my mind is this. It's not that Steph Curry won't win another championship with Golden State, but it's this era of Golden State is done. I think you need to move on from Draymond Green. I think you even need to look towards potentially moving on from Klay Thompson at some point in the near future. The only player that I think is untouchable on this team should be Steph Curry. Jordan Poole shouldn't be untouchable. Wiggins shouldn't be untouchable. You should just have Curry be that piece that you know you're keeping and then build it around him. I don't think you move on from Klay Thompson right off the bat. And that's not going to happen. I don't see that happening on either party. But I think that Klay Thompson, while he still had some good games, I don't think he was the same Klay Thompson that he was before. So I just feel like it's time to move forward. And this is kind of a signal of that. And I think that next we'll see some players like Draymond Green. I don't think Green's going to be a Warrior much longer, if at all. I think we're going to start seeing them reshape their roster a little bit, maybe open up some spots for some upcoming big free agents and see what they can do. And so I think that they're not going to go in a total rebuild mode. I think they could still be a competitive Western Conference team next season, but I do think they're going to start flipping the script a little bit, and this just shows that. So I'm not going to sit here and say that they won't win another championship. They very well could. I just think that this is showing that this times are changing and they're moving past this era, which was a very successful, memorable NBA era, no matter if you were a fan or you were against them. But it's time to move on. And I think that's what this is. And I don't think it's the end, but I do think it's the end of this chapter for them.
I don't know if I'm ready to say it's the end of this chapter just yet. I mean, Bob Myers did a hell of a job. He was also basically given a blank checkbook to keep his own guys and get Kevin Durant, in which he managed to do, right? But it also helps when you have Splash Brothers in their prime, kicking ass and taking names, already winning the championship, win 73 games. It's easy to lure a guy like Kevin Durant over. But he pulled it off, right? I think Bob Myers has built himself a Hall of Fame resume as a GM, even if he never, as a general manager or president of basketball ops with another franchise. I think he'll eventually get into the Hall of Fame. Now, I will say this: I'm very curious to see who's going to take over for Bob Myers. Joe Lacob, the owner of the Warriors, has said that he wants to move his son in something in a higher position in basketball ops, which owner's son, I don't know how much. I mean, ask the Buss family how that worked out with, what's Jeannie Buss's brother's name?
Shoot, I know I can't put
John, Joe, Billy Job, but whatever. Anyway, didn't work out well, and Jeannie had to take over. Right?
Hasn't worked that well with Jeannie either. But
that could be a whole podcast in itself. But my point is, it depends who takes over as general manager. I mean, the owner said he wants his son to move into that type of role. Mike Dunleavy Jr., former Bull, former Pacer, former Warrior, I think is where he got drafted originally out of Duke. I think he's an assistant GM. He very well might be the new general manager. If they keep the rest of the same front office intact, and they hire a Dunleavy Jr. who's played in the NBA, who's a basketball guy, knows talent, things of that nature, I'm not so sure it's the end for the Warriors. Now, what might hurt the Warriors is what's happening, and shout out Jay for pointing this out to me and making me research this. What's going to happen with the new CBA? They're going to tighten down on some of the rules on salary cap restrictions. So, I mean, there's no one in the NBA that has anywhere near the salary, roster, I guess you can say. Team salary is what I'm looking for, that the Golden State Warriors have. They're in the super duper trooper uber luxury tax. And if you have that much of a luxury tax, what's going to happen with the next, I think it starts next year. I don't know when it starts exactly, but long story short, you're well deep in the luxury tax and you're a repeat offender. Thank you, Ghost. It's a second tax is what it is. You can't use your mid-level exception to sign anybody. You basically have to sign guys for the minimum. Not only that, you can't get guys off the buyout market. So, for example, let's say next season they go, let's say Draymond Green enters into his player option, and they basically have the same team that they have this year. Let's say somebody gets hurt and they want to pick up, I don't know, let's say the Bulls cut DeMar DeRozan. They're not going to do that, but let's say just for, argument's sake, he's on the buyout market. Normally the Warriors would be able to go out and sign him to a minimum deal or whatever. They won't be able to do that with the new CBA. So what the new GM is going to have to do is this. He's going to have to make some tough decisions. Draymond Green has a tough decision on whether or not he wants to opt into his player option, which he can, or he can elect to be a free agent. They're going to have to do something with Klay Thompson after next season. If it's a brand new GM from outside the organization, he very well might want to put his stamp on the team. So a lot of times what happens is a new GM comes in, and no matter who the coach is, if it's some guy that's got an ego, it only takes one Jerry Krause, he might want a new coach. So they might push Steve Kerr out the door if they're not successful and they don't win another championship next year. Then after that, you got Draymond Green might leave, might go to your Lakers, who knows, because he's buddies with LeBron. Can't believe I just said that on the podcast, but let's just go with it. Klay Thompson might want to leave. That's when your demise of the Warriors goes. So long story short, it very well depends. If they hire somebody outside the organization that wants to make a name for himself, it could be the end. But if they stay inside the organization and have a tag team at Dunleavy Jr. and anybody else already in the organization, they're just going to have to do some more salary cap gymnastics, which they've always done. I agree, Jay. The NBA does need to move to a hard cap, but good luck with that because all these guys asking for the supermax and things of that nature. I think the Adam Silver, the NBA, has let the genie out of the bottle, and you can't put the genie back once he's out. So anyway, neither here nor there. We're past the halfway point of our show. We haven't gone to everybody's favorite part of Well Beyond the Arc, and that's another edition of NBA Player Or. And because I've been busy with work, Montana has graciously offered to be the one asking the questions and putting me back on the hot seat. Montana was 4 for 5 last week. I think that's correct, Montana. Good comeback for you. I would believe I was 3 for 5 last time you had me on the hot seat, and so it's going to be really interesting what you got in store for me. But those who watch Well Beyond the Arc week in and week out know exactly how the game is played. But for your newbies, we'll go over the rules anyway. Each week, I or Montana will ask the other about 5 names. We'll give each other 5 names, and we have to tell the other co-host whether or not that person is a current or former NBA player or someone from a different profession. It could be NBA player or gymnast, NBA player or comedian, politician, any walk of life. It's no telling what could be the category on NBA player or. If we get a question correct, you will hear this sound. Victory! Thank you once again, Johnny Drama. And if you get it incorrect, well, if we get it incorrect, you'll hear this sound. That was Michael Jordan wagging his finger at Scottie Pippen for calling him, no, I'm not a horrible player. All right, Montana, what do you got in store for me tonight? I'm feeling optimistic, but I'm not feeling cocky. What do you got?
That's a good way to feel before one of these. So, how are you a big movie guy? You watch a lot of movies?
Not a lot, but enough, I guess.
How familiar are you with the Men in Black trilogy?
With the first one, very good. The other ones, not as much.
Okay, well, that's okay. Today's topic is NBA player or Men in Black trilogy cast member. So it's either going to be an NBA player or someone from Men in Black. And just a heads up, it is definitely it's not any of the lead roles. It's going to be one of the smaller roles that gets mentioned. So you're not going to hear any of the big names when it is the Men in Black, if there even are any. Maybe they're all NBA players. Honestly, it could be that. Maybe I'm going to try to pull a fast one on you.
All right. Let's go. Let's hit it.
All right. The first name is Byron Mullins.
NBA player.
Victory! Byron Mullins was drafted 24th overall in the 2009 draft. He played for several different teams in several different leagues. During his NBA time, he averaged 7.4 points per game, 4.2 rebounds per game, 0.8 assists per game, 0.4 steals, and 0.5 blocks. I think that is the best player I've ever put on this list. That's the player.
What wasn't Byron Mullins a dude? I think he played for Oklahoma City at one point. He always had that mustache that looked like he was always going through puberty, like Zach Edey.
Yeah, no, you're Purdue. Thinking of the right. You're thinking of right. Yep, I thought I might get you with that one, but there's one guy I've got the most points I've ever put on here and possibly the least. So we got both ends of the spectrum on here tonight.
Oh man, I didn't research my 10-day contract, guys. Okay, I'm good. Let's go.
Right. 1 for 1. Our next name is Douglas Crosby.
I'm going to go with Men in Black.
Victory!
You're correct. Douglas Crosby played prison guard number 4 in Men in Black 3.
I'm waiting for tree number 2, cashier number 7. Okay.
Hey, maybe that's what's
2
next.
for 2.
You never know. Next name is Scotty Lewis. Scotty Lewis.
Oh, man. That's tough. That is tough. This is a wild guess. I'm going to go NBA.
Victory!
You would be correct.
Ooh.
Scotty Lewis was drafted 56th overall in the 2021 draft. He has had a really short career, very short, bouncing between the G League and the Charlotte Hornets. He has averaged 0.5 points per game, 0.5 assists per game, and 0.5 steals per game. So I don't think he is currently in the league, and maybe there's a pattern with those stats, and we know why. But you're on a roll, man. I thought I might get you at this one, but I guess not. You don't score for that.
Scotty Lewis probably scored 1 career basket in 4 games for a 0.5. Anyway, go on.
That's what I'm thinking too. Our 4th name is Justin Harper.
I don't know if Ron Harper has any relatives named Justin. I'm going to go with, oh, man. I'm going to stick with NBA.
Victory!
You would be correct. Justin Harper was drafted 32nd in the 2011 draft, spending a short amount of time in the NBA and then continuing his career overseas. He averaged 2 points per game, 0.8 rebounds per game, 0.2 assists per game, 0.1 blocks, and 0.1 steals per game for a pretty short but memorable career in the NBA.
Stat stuffer. Justin Harper.
There we
Baller.
go. And our last name is Bernard Gilkey.
Sounds like a baseball player's name. Oh, man. This is a guess, too. I'm going Men in Black.
Flawless victory.
He played a basketball player in the original Men in Black movie.
Wow.
Man, you nailed that. I don't know. Maybe you've watched all 3 of the movies a couple of times because you knew who Prison Guard 4 and who knew basketball player number 1 was, I guess. You know your movie.
There are 2 guesses. Bernard Gilkey literally sounds like a former 90s New York Mets player, and don't ask me why I know that.
Well, no, there is a baseball player, I'm pretty sure, named that, but it's a different
guy.
But I believe one of them was an actual athlete too, and I think it was this one potentially. So there we go.
All right.
Hey, your stuff.
All right.
5 for 5.
All right. Thank you. My blood pressure is now risen, and I got a little anxiety. Thanks, Montana. Appreciate that.
Well,
all right. Moving right along. We're finally on to the 2023 NBA Finals. And I think this is everything that you guys want to talk about now that the rest of the playoffs is in the rearview mirror. We're not talking about bad all-star takes and all this other crap. We're getting to the NBA Finals that start on Thursday. Game 1 in Denver Ball Arena. The Miami Heat will travel to Denver. They already booked the plane, or they already arranged flight arrangements after Game 7, even before Game 7 happened. But it'll be the Miami Heat, the Eastern Conference champs, against the Western Conference champion Denver Nuggets. Nuggets have everybody healthy for the most part, I believe, and had about a week off. The Miami Heat have almost everybody. They might be getting back Tyler Hero sometime in the series, might being the key word. Montana, I mean, what do you think, first of all, when you hear Miami Heat against Denver Nuggets in the NBA Finals?
I'm going to be honest. I think that my thought process the entire time, and not just as a Lakers fan, was whoever wins the West is winning the whole thing. And that is a pretty common trend throughout history, especially in the last 20 years. We've seen a lot of Western Conference teams walk away with it. But I will say this. The Heat are a team that have been here so many times, and even in the Jimmy Butler era, they've been here. Now, I will say the bubble it could not be any different. I don't think it deserves an asterisk and deserves to be in a separate column, but it does deserve to be looked at in the sense of you're taking away the fans, you're taking away the travel. You do take away pieces that would make a big difference in a series like this. But what I will say is this. The Nuggets are the deepest team in the NBA. They're the best team in the NBA. And you're not going to see a team like the Heat be able to keep up. I've got Nuggets winning in 5. As much as I don't want the Nuggets to win since they beat the Lakers, I've got Nuggets in 5.
I think it's an interesting matchup, and I think the NBA, Adam Silver and the NBA were kind of hoping that it'd be another Boston LA finals, but then the Nuggets and Heat decided to go off script, right? You got the coming into the season, 2-time reigning MVP and Nikola Jokic. You got Jamal Murray coming back from injury and balling out in these playoffs, averaging somewhere around 27 points per game during the 2023 playoffs. You got Michael Porter Jr. back for the Nuggets. Aaron Gordon's probably having his best all-around season. And then, like you said, Montana, they're just deep. But on the other hand, in this other corner, you got the Miami Heat, one of the top 2 coaches in the league, a team that has finals experience, a team that was in the Eastern Conference Finals last year. I mean, as we're joined by Jay here, I'm going to co-sign some of your crazy shit you already said. So let's go.
Well, I guess my only question for everybody is, and it was one of the comments earlier, who the hell's going to guard Jokic?
Don't sleep on Bam Adebayo guarding Jokic. I mean, every team in the NBA could ask that question. Who the hell is going to guard Jokic?
And Cal was saying that I agree with Cal when he said, beyond the Joker, that team is balling, and Caldwell Pope's even on fire.
Yeah, and they even got guys on the bench. Reggie Jackson. They acquired Reggie Jackson after they traded away Bones Highland. That's who they got for him. Reggie Jackson was starting as the Clippers point guard earlier this year, and he can barely get on the court for the Nuggets. That's how deep they are. Bruce Brown coming off the bench is balling. KCP balling, just like you said. They even got that kid Christian Braun from Kansas who, he's grinded his way to a role on that team. See it, they're rolling. But here's the thing about the Nuggets. They've had a week off, and sometimes that hurts your rhythm. Now, granted, the Heat are going to have 2 days to prepare. They got today and tomorrow to prepare for the Miami Heat. They're going to be more in a rhythm than the Nuggets. The Nuggets are going to have some rust off or knock some rust off. I think the Miami Heat can come in and take game 1, but for the series, Montana, I think you said you have the Nuggets in 5. It wouldn't shock me if the series went the distance, but my gut's telling me Nuggets in 6. And only because Miami is the type of team that has proved so far during these playoffs that they're the team that can come and mess everything up. They can defend as well as anybody. They can execute as well as anybody. Smoke, well played. There's your comment of the day so far. Montana, what are the keys to Miami having a chance in this series, if you're Miami?
Biggest key is making sure you can shut down the Joker Murray connection, shutting those 2 players down, because we obviously know that Jimmy Butler's going to cook. No matter if they lose in 4, Jimmy Butler's probably going to have a 35 to 40 point performance. I can see that being a very accurate. He's alive in the playoffs. He's definitely alive in the finals. So I don't think it's going to be a sweep. I think it's 5 games, but I think that Jimmy Butler is going to play great, but the biggest key is shutting down Murray and Joker, because even though Joker wasn't the most consistent during the Lakers, he still was alive and present when he needed to be, and Murray torched us. So those are the 2 players that they're way deeper than just that team, or than just those 2 players. They're a way deeper team, but those are the 2 that, like, if you can't shut them down, if you can't slow them down, then that's that. And I'm not sure if they can shut down Murray. I don't know if they have a guard that is going to put up a good enough, because Murray is a threat on multiple areas, mid-range, distance. He's decent at driving it to the hoop and putting up those circus shots. I mean, he's a really, really, really good, aggressive, physical player, sometimes to a fault with his injuries. So I think another key, and I won't say it's really a key, I don't think I can say this is a key, but more of a factor for either team is health. Let's say Joker or Murray go down in the series, or Jimmy Butler, who has that bum ankle, I believe it's an ankle or a foot, he goes down. If any of these key pieces go down, just like any series, any game, throughout any part of the season, it will make a difference. But I think your biggest keys to this game, if you're the Heat, is shutting down Joker and also trying to at least slow Murray and take his production numbers down, make him move the ball around. He can still move the ball around great, but I would say that Murray's more of a scoring threat. Yeah, he can move the ball around great, but he's a scoring threat first as a point guard. He's one of the best scoring point guards in the league. Even if he doesn't have the best averages all the time, the way he scores the ball and his arsenal is very large. So you've got to slow those two guys down, and that's easier said than done. So I think it's going to be hard fought. You already know Jimmy Butler's going to show up. I believe the Heat will be able to show up, and I will say this. I think if the Nuggets win in game 1, I think they're winning it in 5. If the Heat pull off the game 1 victory, I can foresee a 6-game series just like you called.
Yeah, that's kind of why I have Nuggets in 6. I would not be shocked at all that Miami goes in and gets game 1 and the Nuggets recover. I think, Denver, it's pick your poison between Joker and Murray. You're 100% right. They got to slow down Jamal Murray and that dribble handoff action. But what Miami's proven to be successful at times, and they mix it up over the course of the game, is playing a zone. And granted, slowing down the Joker is easier said than done. They have a lot of high post action. That's where Joker makes a lot of his money, with either from passing out of the high post and getting some back picks with Aaron Gordon going to the basket, or Michael Porter Jr. popping out and hitting a 3, or even a handoff to Murray and be able to drive and create over there. You play a zone, and that takes it away. And Spoelstra has proved to not be afraid to play a zone. And how many stand-up shooters do the Nuggets have? Yeah, Michael Porter Jr., every time Michael Porter Jr. touches it, I feel like he hits a 3. Joker can hit a 3. Murray can hit a 3. KCP can hit a 3. But, what happens if one of those guys get put on the bench for some rest? Bruce Bowen, decent three-point shooter. Reggie Jackson will get some burn over the course of these playoffs. But it's going to be really interesting to see how Miami and Eric Spoelstra decide to defend the Nuggets. If I was them, I'd go zone personally and make them beat me from the outside to take away the back cut action and take away the dribble handoff action, things of that. Smoke, listen, I get it, but the Heat have pulled it off so far. They did it against the Knicks. They confused the Celtics with it. I'm not saying it's going to be the reason the Heat win, but I can see that at least causing some confusion on the part of the Nuggets. Now, if I'm the Nuggets, though, I get out and run, and I run it and I don't stop, even with the Joker. There's some similarities. Miami has their big man Bam Adebayo bring down the ball a lot. Well, Joker brings down the ball a lot and sets up the offense that way. Maybe the Nuggets let Jimmy Butler get his and try to shut down everybody else. So that way you don't have a Kyle Lowry coming off a screen and hitting a 3. You don't let Caleb Martin, a relative unknown before these playoffs, beat you. You don't let Duncan Robinson beat you. You don't let some of these other guys beat you. Maybe they let Jimmy Butler go for 40 and 50, but as long as you slow down everybody else, maybe that's how the Nuggets win the game. Bam Adebayo has looked hesitant on the offensive side. Hesitant. He won't even shoot a jumper from 15 feet unless the shot clock's running down. Yeah, he can around the basket. He'll get an offensive rebound and put it back in, but maybe Joker will be able to slow him down there. On the same side, maybe that's Miami's strategy, like we'll try to do like the Phoenix Suns did last year, and letting Joker get his and try to shut down everybody else. But at the end of the day, I think the Nuggets are too good. I think Michael Malone's a pretty solid coach in his own right. He's going to figure out a way to make an adjustment, even if Miami goes zone for part of the game. He's going to figure out the right guys to mix and match. They are deeper. Even if the Heat get Tyler Hero back, I stand by my prediction of Nuggets in 6.
And I think that's a great – I kind of – Heat over – I mean, honestly, you could look at it like that. The Heat – for being the 8th seed, being the team that, between them and the Lakers, those were the two Cinderella stories, if you want to call it that. Those are the two stories that pushed it far. The Heat just got over that hump because they're the better team. Not that we're comparing Heat Lakers, but if you did, the Heat were the better team overall. They showed up in the playoffs consistently. They had some really tough opponents. Part of the reason they made it this far is because they played the Bucks in the first round. Jimmy Butler came alive. That team came alive early on, and it never turned off. Had they played a different team in the first round, we might be looking at a different scenario. But you could say that about any series, any team. You could say that about anything. But I do think that the Heat are here because of the momentum they picked up in that first round against the team that everyone thought was going to be in this scenario, not the Heat.
So Ghost asked a couple questions we didn't get to earlier. Number one, Ghost, good question about Denver. This is their first NBA Finals, so this would be their first NBA championship. I don't remember if they won in the ABA, but this is definitely their first NBA Finals, and this would be their first NBA championship. As far as an 8 seed winning a championship, the answer to that is no. But an 8 seed has made it to the NBA Finals. The New York Knicks in the lockout shortened 99 season played the San Antonio Spurs, where the San Antonio Spurs beat them for their first championship. So while an 8 seed has made the finals once before, an 8 seed has never won the NBA Finals. Not yet. Yeah, we are looking at history no matter who wins. Absolutely right. Montana Finals MVP. A couple quick hitters, and we'll get out of here. Finals MVP. Who you got?
I've got Joker. I think he's going to win that, and that's just going to boost his resume. And then he's looking like one of the better centers we've seen in the last 20 years, if not the best. So I've got to give it to Joe. I mean, I think Joker's going to win it for sure.
I agree with that. I also have the Joker getting the MVP. Jamal Murray, I wouldn't be surprised if he got it, although I think Jamal Murray is going to be bothered a lot by whatever guards Miami throws at him. I think Gabe Vincent's going to get under his skin. Kyle Lowry while he's in there. Max Strus, who's proven to be a pretty solid 3-and-D guy. I just don't see Jamal Murray going off for the whole series. I do see him having big games, but I think at the end of the day, I think Joker is going to be the engine that pushes the Nuggets to the championship as he has all season long. What about X factors for both teams? Who would you say would be an X factor for the Heat and an X factor for the Denver Nuggets?
X factor for the Heat is always going to be Jimmy Butler. I think that's the guy that has to lead that team. That's the whole reason they're here, is his leadership. It's not even his playing on the court. It's his leadership and who he is as a player. So you've got to give it to Jimmy Butler. But then also another player that is bigger in this series is Bam Adebayo. How he shows up against Joker, and it's not just going to be him that's slowing Joker down. But if we're talking about Joker being the finals MVP, the guy that has to slow him down, and I do think Bam Adebayo can be that guy. That's a big role. So Bam Adebayo, and then again for the Nuggets, it's Joker. Of course, it's going to be Murray. But another player we need to talk about is KCP. When he puts up good performances, usually they win those games. KCP is we've got to give it to him. I mean, he won with the Lakers. He was on the Lakers for a couple of seasons. He is a really, really, really solid player, and I think he's really grown his game in Denver. And I love it. I'm glad he's back here. I'm glad he's in this spot. And when he plays well and when he shows up, and especially when he's shooting is on point, they usually win those games. So KCP is kind of that I'll call him a secret weapon for the Nuggets. Like, a lot of people know about him and think he's good, but I don't think you'd consider him a factor. But I definitely do. And a lot of people wouldn't consider him an X factor, but I think he is. And I think that if he shoots really efficiently like he can, and if he plays really well and helps move the ball around like Denver's done the whole season, right there is going to give the Heat a lot of problems.
Yeah, great picks. I think for Miami, it's got to be Bam, right? And it's, I feel silly saying a guy that's an all-star is an X factor, but he has to be, because he's the one guy that if he's aggressive offensively, is someone that can potentially get the Joker in foul trouble. And who's the backup center? DeAndre Jordan. Who would you rather have on the court, DeAndre Jordan or Jokic? Or maybe they go small and put Aaron Gordon at the 5. I mean, Aaron Gordon's 6'10" and can probably match up with Bam Adebayo as well. But if Bam Adebayo is aggressive offensively and can force the Joker to play some defense and potentially get him in foul trouble, I think he's an X factor for the Heat. Second X factor for the Heat, and I know we said pick one from each team, but I'm going to go with the second one. I'm going to go with Tyler Hero. And the reason I'm saying this is because we don't know if he's going to play or not. There's some reports saying that he can come back from that fractured hand in Game 3. It's been a while. He's going to have a lot of rust. He's probably not going to play 40 minutes. Who knows? Maybe they've had him working out the whole time and his conditioning's fine. But, if Tyler Hero is able to come in and give him something and combat the Nuggets' depth, and just another guy that, a shooter you got to watch out for. Drafted you.
Hey, not a terrible call. Against a team like the Nuggets, a team that's that well built, they could crumble as a team. But
there you go. Well, those are the X factors I got for the Miami Heat and the Nuggets. I'm going to go with 2 as well. Number 1 is going to be Michael Porter Jr. because it seems like if Michael Porter Jr. has a big game or shoots well, puts that about 17 points a game, the Nuggets usually win. If not, if he's quiet and doesn't shoot well from the field, Nuggets have a hard time winning. You expect Joker to have big games. You expect Jamal Murray to have big games. Michael Porter Jr. is going to be that third guy. Another guy that can be that third guy, but is going to be a Swiss Army knife just as much as Joker is going to be Aaron Gordon. Aaron Gordon may very well play the backup to Jokic when he's not in the game. He's 6'10", athletic. Bam Adebayo, everybody forgets, is only 6'9", 6'10", and I don't know who plays beyond Bam Adebayo, to be honest with you. What, Dwayne Dedman, Omar Yurtseven? I mean, not is Udonis Haslem going to play? Probably not. So I think Aaron Gordon may have double duty in, being a backup too and guarding a guy like Bam Adebayo. He also might be a guy that might be tasked with guarding Jimmy Butler as well. And if Aaron Gordon's got a wide open 3, he's got to be not only willing to take it, but he's got to knock it down. So I think it's Michael Porter Jr. / Aaron Gordon as X factors for the Nuggets, Bam Adebayo, and Tyler Hero if he plays for the Heat. So either way, it's going to be a great series. Game 1 tips off Thursday night on NBC. Wish TNT was carrying the finals, but I also wish I had the winning lottery numbers, and that hasn't happened yet. So, well, we're coming to a close here. Episode 40. Montana, we've done 40 of these freaking things. And we got a couple more to go at least. So, Montana, this isn't the only place that our listeners and viewers can find your work. Where else can we find you?
Yeah, so I got a couple other shows going on right now. One is called Purple and Gold Zone, and as you can probably guess, it's an all-thing Lakers show. I have been hesitant to post a new episode because I just have been too busy grieving the season and not sure exactly what to say. But no, I'm posting a new episode sometime this week. It'll either be out tomorrow or it'll be out on Thursday. You can catch that on Spotify at Purple and Gold Zone. Or if you go to YouTube and search up Purple and Gold Zone, you'll find it there. Another show I have is called The Connor and Heffernan Show. We're an all-themed sports show. We talk MLB, NBA. We're talking motorsports, MMA, MLB, NHL. We talk everything, and you can watch the whole show. The show's pretty long, but you can go to our segments in our description if you watch the YouTube video and find a segment you want to watch, or you can watch or listen to the whole thing. Both of those can be found on YouTube and Spotify at The Connor and Heffernan Show. Be sure to check that out. New episode this Friday.
All right. Make sure to check that out, everybody. And you can find my work on my blog site. It's the Sports Page blog. You can find it at thesportspageblog.com. Haven't been posting as much as I usually do, but did post a couple ones the last week or so. Posted one about the Celtics asking if they can be the first team to come back from 3-0. We all know the answer to that now. Also posted about Nikola Jokic, probably proving some of those guys that voted for MVP, for Embiid to be MVP wrong. So be sure to check that out. And also have some good old ones talking about Scottie Pippen, his comments about Jordan, and just, 83 other blogs that I've written to this point. So be sure to check that out. Montana, feel better, everyone. Have a great NBA Finals. We will see you hopefully next week at the same time. Take care.